So in the last video, we had a look at the use dispatch hook. We also talked about the use selector hook in short. We already know that React has a lot of hooks that were introduced in React version above 15.8 and they are very useful. We have a list of uh, hooks that we have already discussed about, and videos regarding that have been already uploaded, so you can check that out. The takeaway for today's video will be the use context and use reducer hook. So today we will be working on both of them. We will be understanding the concepts of use context and use reducers together. So why are we using these two hooks is that we are just going to find a replacement for Redux. So instead of using Redux as state management, we can use the inbuilt hooks that are available in React itself. Eventually, you can replace or move the project that is dependent on Redux to the inbuilt hooks. The useContext hook is used to create common data that can be accessed throughout the component hierarchy without passing the props down manually to each level. Context defined will be available to all the child components without involving props. React Context is a powerful state management feature in React. Instead of passing the props down through each component, React Context allows you to broadcast props to the components below. The useReducer hook is used for complex state manipulation and state transitions. useReducer is a React hook function that accepts a reducer function and an initial state. This hook function returns some value. So in today's video, we will be building a to-do list where we will be adding the items and then the items will be displayed in a list. Also, when we have completed that the task, then we will have a cross button which we can use to remove that item from the to-do list. This is an example that will help you understand it in very much easier way. So initially we will have the initial state and actions. So I'm inside my components folder inside todoList.js, and here we will be trying to understand the basic code first and then we will move on further. So first I'm going to set up the initial state and actions. So for that we are going to create the const initial state here. To-do list is initially an empty string. Now we will create our action. So const actions. So we want to add a few actions. So first one is add to do item, and this is assigned to add to do item. We'll just copy this and paste it here. Next, so not add to do item, remove to do item. And then this is also assigned to remove to do item. Lastly, we will have a third action, that is toggle complete. Toggle completed. This is assigned to toggle completed. So this was the initial state and the actions. Now we will be setting up our reducers to handle the action. So we will create our const reducer. This takes state and action as input. Now we will be adding our switch statement. Here action dot type. Then we will have the cases. So our first case is actions dot add to do item. Here we want to return the to do list. This to do list is going to have state dot to do list. After this, we will also have few attributes that we will add. So first one is ID, which is set to new date dot value of. So in this way it will have a unique ID. Next is label. This is set to actions dot to do item label, and completed is set to false. So this is the first case. Now we will be adding the second case. So case is actions remove to do items. So here we will first create a const filtered to do items. Filtered to do item is set to state dot to do list dot filter, and here we are going to filter to do item. Here according to do item dot ID, and we will check for the action dot to do item id. Now returning, what is this function going to return? So it is going to return to do list, which is assigned to filter to item. Now next is our action. So next is case actions dot toggle completed. So in that we will have a const update to do list assigned to state dot to do list dot map, and as an argument we are going to pass to do item. This is assigned to do item dot id if that is equivalent to action dot to do item id. So if that is true, then this is going to give to do item and the completed property will be set to opposite of to do item dot completed. If not, then this is just going to return the to do item. Now we will return to do list, which is assigned to update to do list, and last one is our default case. So default, we will just return the state. Now here first case is the add to do items. So action spread the existing list and add a new to do item to the list with id that is unique. The label is a user entered value, that is the title, or what do you call that item. So that is label and completed flag. Second case is remove to do. Action filter out the to do item that need to be removed based on the id. Third case, toggle completed. Action loop through all the to do items and toggle the completed flag based on the id. Now our next step is creating the context and provider to dispatch the action. So let us start that. So context and provider. So for that, so we will create a const. This is named to do list context which uses the ReactJS.CreateContext. So for reusing React, we have to import it. So import React from React. Next, we are going to create our const provider and pass children as the argument. Now we will create const. This is going to have state and dispatch, and call our React.useReducer. Here we will pass the reducer and initial state as an argument. After this, we will create a const value. This is going to have todoList, which is again assigned to state dot todo list. It is assigned to todoList, and then add todo item. So todo item label, and it is going to dispatch. So here the type is again actions dot add todo item, and second is the todo item label. Similarly, we will have remove todo also. So remove todo item, taking todo item ID. And this is going to dispatch. So in dispatch, we are going to add the type actions dot remove todo item and add the todo item ID. Next, we will be writing our third case, that is mark as complete. Mark as completed. Here also we will be passing the todo item ID. And we will dispatch the type actions dot toggle completed and to do item ID. Now we will be returning the provider and the value. So we will add a return. Inside this return we will have the to do list context dot provider and the value is assigned to value, and here we will be rendering the children. Next we create the to-do list context and a provider function that returns the to-do list contexts provider. So here we pass the reducer function and the initial state to the useReducer hook. This will return state and dispatch. The action, the state will have the initial state and the dispatch is used to trigger our actions just like in Redux. In the value object we have to-do list state and three functions. First is add to-do item, remove to-do item and mark as completed, which trigger add to-do item, remove to-do item and toggle completed. We pass the value object as a prop to the to-do list contexts provider so that we can access it using useContext. So our next step is to create the two components that will use the store, that is add to do and to do list. You can create separate files also, but we will be doing it in the same file. So add to do component with input field and add button. Here const add to do here we will create const input value and set input value and we will be calling the use state. So React.use state. So it will again auto import. It did not, so we have to import it here. Use state, use context. That's it for now. And here we will give an empty string as an argument. Next we are going to create a const add to do item, and here we will be calling React.useContext. And passing to-do list context as the argument. Now we will add the return. So first a div. Inside this I will add an input. The type will be text. The value will be input value. It will have a placeholder which says type and add to do. To do item, and the on change this on change is taking an event E and then it is calling the set input value. And then E dot target dot value. Now we will add the button with an on click. This on click takes add to do item and input value and set input value, which is going to set it to an empty string. And this button will just say add. In this add to do component, we use the useContext to subscribe to our to do list context and getting add to do item dispatch function. Now next we are going to add to do list component to show the list. So const to do list and const to do list remove to do item and mark as completed. This is all assigned to React.useContext. And we are adding to do list context here. Now inside the return, we will add a list which will display the items. To do list dot map. This is going to map the to do item. And to display it into a list. This list has a class name to do item. and we will check if the to do item is complete. To do item dot completed. So if that is completed, or it is not completed. It has a key which is to do item dot id and an on click. This on click is going to check for mark as completed according to the ID of the item. So to do item dot id. And we will be adding the to do item dot label. Next we will add a button, and it has a class name delete. On click to remove the item, so we will call remove. To do item, passing the ID as an argument. So to do item dot id. This button will have a cross, for that we will just use X. In to-do list component, we are using useContext to subscribe to the to-do list context and getting the to-do list state, remove to-do item and mark as complete dispatch functions. We are mapping through to-do list and rendering the to-do item and a remove button next to them. On clicking on an item, we are marking it as complete, and when clicking on the cross, the button, we are removing it from the list. Finally, we will wrap all this into the provider. So we are going to first export the default. The function to-do list, and inside return we will be adding the provider, and we will add to do and to do list. So now if we look at the output, then you can see that we have an input which has type an add to do item and an add button. So let us go ahead and add something in this. So let us say drink water. This is our first item, and click on add. So you can see it appears here. Next let us add read. So you can see two items. Now if I want to remove this item, so that is completed now and it is getting removed. Again if I want to add code,
So you can see I have this button, and whenever I want to remove any item, it works fine. So that's it for today. I'll see you in the next video.